There's something almost no one tells you about healing. It will not look like the picture you have in your mind. It is not a straight line from pain to happiness. It's not a few therapy sessions, a couple of self-help books, or a weekend. Finding yourself retreat that makes you permanently okay. Healing is a long road, sometimes winding, and definitely imperfect. I want you to imagine this. You're standing on a foggy path. You can't see the end. All you notice are curves ahead, patches of uneven ground, and every now and then an unexpectedly beautiful clearing that takes your breath away, and you walk with a heart that is both eager and cautious. We're often obsessed with the idea of arriving that someday all our wounds will vanish, all painful memories will fade, all relationships will be harmonious. But the truth is, no one truly arrives. Healing is not about becoming a flawless version of yourself. It's about learning how to live with the imperfect pieces and still finding life worth loving. On this journey, you will have days when you clearly see progress. You handle your emotions better. You react calmly to situations that once triggered you. But you'll also have days when you slip back into old patterns, asking yourself, why am I like this again? And here's the key. Healing is progress and relapse, trial and error, building and breaking, again and again. Not because you are weak, but because this is how the human mind and heart learn, adapt, and recover. This path will also test your patience. You might feel frustrated when growth seems invisible, or when you compare yourself to someone else's journey and feel like you're behind. You might even doubt whether you're healing at all. But that's when you need to remember, slow progress is still progress. Sometimes the smallest internal shifts, the pause before reacting, the choice to speak kindly to yourself, are the most powerful dot in this video. We're going to explore the rarely discussed truths about the healing process, why it takes longer than we expect, and why that's okay. The subtle psychological traps that make you believe you're not healed enough, and how to keep moving forward even when nothing seems to be going your way. So, are you ready to step into this honest conversation with me? No sugarcoating, no false promises of quick fixes, just the truth, and hopefully enough hope to keep you going. One of the biggest myths about emotional and psychological healing is that there's a finish line, a magical moment when you wake up and realize, I'm finally fixed, I'm done. We imagine that once we cross that invisible line, we'll never feel the weight of old wounds again. The memories won't sting, the fears won't whisper, and the insecurities will simply vanish. But the truth, that moment, the idea of being fully healed, is an illusion. Here's why. Humans are not static beings. We are constantly experiencing, evolving, and being shaped by life. That means even if you've resolved certain pains, new experiences can bring them back in unexpected ways. Let me give you an example. Imagine someone who grew up in a home where love was conditional, where affection had to be earned. After years of self-work, therapy, and inner reflection, they learn to value themselves without seeking constant approval. They feel confident, whole, but then they fall in love again. Suddenly, those old fears resurface. What if they leave? What if I'm not enough? It's not because they failed at healing. It's because love, vulnerability, and human connection naturally press on old scars. Healing doesn't erase your scars. It teaches you how to live with them without letting them control you. The illusion of being fully healed is dangerous. For another reason, it can make you feel like you've failed if pain reappears. You might think, I thought I was over this. Why am I back here again? And that shame can push you into giving up on your growth. But what if we reframed it? What if we saw healing not as permanent perfection, but as increasing resilience? The goal isn't to never fall, it's to recover faster, with more wisdom and less self-judgment each time. Think of it like building muscle. When you first start exercising, even light weights feel impossible. But over time, you get stronger. Does that mean you'll never feel tired or sore again? Of course not. It means your capacity grows. You can handle more without breaking. Your emotional strength works the same way. The triggers don't vanish, but you know how to breathe through them. The sadness still visits, but it doesn't stay as long. The fears still speak, but they don't decide your choices anymore. So, if you ever find yourself thinking, why am I still feeling this after all the work I've done? Remind yourself, you are not back at square one. You are facing the same storm, but with a stronger ship and better navigation. In the next part, we'll talk about the hidden setbacks that most people don't anticipate in their healing journey, and how those moments, instead of being signs of failure, can actually be turning points for deeper growth. Here's something most self-help books don't prepare you for. Even after months or years of progress, you will have days that feel like you've been thrown back to your lowest point. Maybe you've been practicing self-love, and then one small criticism from someone you care about shatters your confidence. Maybe you've been managing your anxiety well, but one stressful week at work brings back the racing thoughts and sleepless nights. In those moments, it's easy to think, I guess nothing I've done has worked. I'm back where I started. But here's the truth. Setbacks are not proof that your healing has failed. They are proof that you're human. Think of your healing journey, like climbing a mountain. From a distance, the climb looks like one smooth, upward path. But in reality, the path winds, dips, and sometimes even descends before it rises again. If you only measure your progress by your current position, you might miss the fact that your overall direction is still upward. A setback doesn't erase the miles you've already walked. The danger is when we interpret a setback as the end of the road. You see, the mind loves certainty. When it encounters discomfort it thought it had overcome, it panics and declares defeat. But growth is never a straight line. It's a spiral. You revisit old wounds, but each time from a different level, with more understanding and new tools. Let me give you an analogy. Imagine you're learning to play the piano. For weeks, you've been improving steadily. Then one day, your fingers just don't cooperate. You make mistakes you haven't made in months. Does that mean you've unlearned everything? No. It means your brain and body are processing deeper layers of skill, and sometimes that process looks messy before it clicks. The same is true for emotional healing. When old patterns resurface, it's not a sign you've regressed. It's an opportunity to test your new coping mechanisms in more challenging conditions. The key here is self-compassion. If you treat yourself like a failure every time you stumble, you'll avoid risk, avoid vulnerability, and avoid situations that might trigger growth. But if you treat setbacks as teachers, you'll stay open to learning. Here's a practical tip. The next time you hit a setback, pause and ask yourself, what triggered this? How am I responding differently than I would have before? What can this moment teach me about my deeper needs? Often, you'll realize that your reaction is still far healthier than it used to be, even if it doesn't feel like it in the moment. Maybe you're recovering in days instead of months. Maybe you're talking about your feelings instead of burying them. Those are victories worth acknowledging. In fact, many therapists will tell you that the moments you think you're failing are often the moments you're making the most significant breakthroughs, because that's when you're confronting the edges of your comfort zone. So, instead of fearing setbacks, learn to see them as part of the rhythm of healing. They are not interruptions to your journey. They are the journey. One of the most frustrating parts of personal growth is feeling like you've already worked through an issue, only to have it resurface later. You might think, why am I still dealing with this? I thought I was past it. But healing is rarely about solving something once and never thinking about it again. It's more like peeling an onion. You remove one layer and another appears. When you first address a wound, maybe it's childhood neglect, betrayal in a relationship, or a fear of abandonment. You usually start with the surface layer. The memories, the obvious pain, the clear triggers. But beneath that surface is a more subtle, more deeply embedded layer. Beliefs you formed about yourself and the world because of that wound. For example, let's say you grew up in a home where love felt conditional. Your first layer of healing might involve recognizing, I was not given the emotional safety I deserved. That's a huge step. But years later, you might find yourself struggling with trust in relationships. That's not a new problem. It's a deeper layer of the same wound. Now, you're not just processing the memory of the past. You're reprogramming how you show up in the present. This is why it's common to feel like you're back at square one, but in reality, you're facing a more advanced challenge. It's like a video game. The first time you encounter a boss, you barely know what you're doing. You fight, you lose, you learn. The second time you face them, the fight is harder, not because you've regressed, but because the level has advanced. You're playing on a higher difficulty, and that means you're growing. Another important aspect is that different life stages bring different layers of healing into focus. In your 20s, you might be dealing with self-worth in the context of dating. In your 30s, you might face it again, but this time in the context of career or parenting. Same core wound, different layer. When you start to view healing this way, you stop asking, why is this happening again? And start asking, what is this layer asking me to learn? Here's the empowering part. Every time you peel back a layer, you get closer to the core, the point where the wound no longer defines your choices or identity. You may still remember it, but it loses its power to dictate your future. So, how do you navigate these layers without getting discouraged? First, accept that discomfort is part of progress. Second, measure growth not by how often an issue comes up, but by how differently you respond each time. Third, keep tools ready for when the next layer reveals itself. Journaling, therapy, mindfulness, supportive communities. Remember, healing isn't about erasing the past. It's about reclaiming your present and future, one layer at a time. There is a belief that once you've done the work, you'll wake up one day and never feel the pain again. That you'll cross some invisible finish line where the old wounds no longer exist. The triggers vanish and you become untouched by struggle. It's a beautiful idea, but it's also a dangerous myth. The truth is, healing is not about reaching a state where nothing can hurt you. It's about developing the resilience to face what does. Think of it like physical fitness. You don't work out for 6 months, get in shape, and then stop forever because you finished. Your body needs ongoing care. Strength isn't permanent, it's maintained through practice. Emotional and psychological healing works the same way. The myth of complete healing sets people up for disappointment. They think, if I still get anxious, if I still feel triggered, I must not be healed. But that's like saying, if I still sweat during exercise, I must be out of shape. No, it means you're alive. You're responding. You're engaged with life. Another trap in this myth is perfectionism, disguised as self-improvement. Some people keep chasing the next therapy, the next book, key, the next retreat, not because they're learning, but because they're trying to eliminate all discomfort before they truly live. And here's the hard truth. Life will never give you that guarantee. Pain is a part of the human condition. Loss, change, uncertainty, they're woven into our existence. Healing doesn't erase them. What healing does is change your relationship with them. Here's an example. Before healing, rejection might feel like proof that you're unworthy. After healing, rejection might still sting. But now, it's just that, a sting, not a life sentence. You can feel it, process it, and move forward without letting it define you. This shift in perspective is everything. Because if you measure healing only by the absence of pain, you'll always feel like you've failed. But if you measure it by your capacity to feel pain without losing yourself, you'll realize you've grown more than you ever imagined. So, instead of asking, when will I be completely healed? Ask, how can I live fully, even with the scars I carry? The scars don't mean you're broken. They mean you've faced the storms, and you're still here, still capable of love, joy, connection, and hope. And here's the paradox. The moment you stop chasing complete healing is often the moment you feel the most whole. Because you're no longer trying to be someone without a past. You're embracing who you've become because of it. We've talked about wounds, triggers, layers of healing, and the myths that keep us trapped. Now comes the real question. What does it look like to actually live with your inner child? Because here's the truth. Healing isn't just something you do in therapy, in meditation, or in the quiet moments when you're journaling. It's something you practice in real life, in your relationships, in your work. In the way you talk to yourself when no one else is listening. Living with your inner child means recognizing that they are always with you. Not as a ghost haunting your decisions, but as a voice that needs acknowledgement. It means creating a life where they feel safe, seen, and valued. Step 1. Listen. Your inner child speaks in feelings more than words. When you suddenly feel afraid, insecure, or unworthy, that's them tugging at your sleeve. Instead of shutting them down, pause and ask, what do you need right now? Maybe it's reassurance. Maybe it's rest. Maybe it's simply the acknowledgement that, yes, this moment is hard. Step 2. Reparent yourself. If your caregivers couldn't provide certain things. Unconditional love, encouragement, boundaries, you can provide them now. It may feel strange at first, but you can be both the nurturer and the one being nurtured. This could look like setting healthy boundaries and saying no when you feel overwhelmed, speaking to yourself kindly when you make mistakes, making time for play, creativity, and joy, not just productivity. Remember, healing isn't only about processing pain. It's about learning to give yourself the things you've always needed but never received. Step 3. Accept imperfection. Your inner child doesn't need you to be perfect. They need you to be consistent, compassionate, and willing to try. Again, when you fall short, there will be days you lose your patience, say something you regret, or avoid a hard truth. That's okay. Apologize to yourself. Forgive yourself. Move forward. Step 4. Stay connected. Healing is deeply personal, but it doesn't happen in isolation. Find people who honor both your adult self and your inner child. This could be friends who make you laugh without judgment, a therapist who provides guidance, or communities where vulnerability is welcomed, not shamed, because every time you allow yourself to be seen, you tell your inner child, you're safe here. Step 5. Live now. Your inner child may carry pain from the past, but they also hold your capacity for wonder. When you give them permission to explore, to dream, to be curious, you're not just healing, you're thriving. Take the trip, start the project, dance in the kitchen. Let your inner child remind you that life is meant to be experienced, not merely survived. Closing thoughts. Your healing journey will be messy. It will have detours, pauses, and moments when you feel like you've gone backward. But if you keep showing up for yourself, for your inner child, you are moving forward. Even if it doesn't feel like it. The past is part of you, but it does not define your future. Your inner child may have been wounded, but they are also resilient. And when you walk together, adult and child, you're not just surviving the storms. You're learning to dance in the rain. If this conversation resonated with you, know that you're not alone. Your story matters. Your healing matters. And I'd love to walk this journey with you. So, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell, because we have so much more to explore together. And if you know someone who could use these words today, share this video with them. It might be the reminder they need that healing is possible, even if it's not perfect. Thank you for being here, for listening, and for choosing to show up for yourself. I'll see you in the next video.